Our purpose found even greater meaning this week when our leaders addressed injustice.
Although I don't share the same life experience, I want to listen, understand, and help.
Our colleagues brought perspective to the forefront.
As a Black man in America, in the United States, we are viewed as less than.
The only way for this to change is for us to unite and require change.
Our brand paired bold statements with the promise of action.
And you should know that from a perspective of what we are represented as a brand, we hear you, we see you.
We cannot commit to a brand purpose of moving the world forward unless we're committed to helping ensure we move forward for everyone.
And we continue that forward movement with the conversation focused on ways we can all be more than just allies. Rounding out your week with Wellness Friday, here's Diana Alvear to get you up to speed.
Welcome to a special edition of Wellness Friday. I'm Diana Alvear. I'm a member of the V team, one of the newest members, and I am so pleased to have with me today a very special guest. He's been a friend of mine for years, and his work is more necessary now than ever. I am so privileged to have Willie Jackson joining us today. He is a facilitator and consultant with ReadySet. And Willie, thank you so much for being here. First, please start by telling me what exactly you do with ReadySet.
Diana, it's so good to see you after all this time. This is a real treat for me. Thanks for having me on. So as you mentioned, I'm a consultant and facilitator with ReadySet. ReadySet is a diversity strategy firm based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we help companies across a range of industries create more human-centered solutions to the end that they are establishing more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplace environments.
Now, you've been doing this work for years, and there has been a need for this work for years, but now all of a sudden, in light of everything that's been happening and the crises that are gripping the nation, I feel like people want to know how to help, how to become better allies, all those sorts of things. Tell me how many calls have you guys received about this kind of work?
It's unprecedented. I stopped counting a while ago. Yeah, there was a significant uptick more recently around the time that Ahmaud Arbery unfortunately was killed in Georgia. And since then, we saw an uptick in inbound requests. But there was a turning point over the weekend where we saw these uprisings and protests and really the more broad civil unrest on the back of the pandemic. And we've been looking at 14-hour days. It's been humbling. It's been exciting in some ways. And, I'll be honest, it feels good in this moment of such confusion and calamity and chaos to have something useful to do and some relevant skills, perspective, and expertise to offer to this movement. So that's why I'm so delighted that you've prioritized this conversation for you all internally, because it's vital. So many people are having this conversation and saying, what can I do?
All right, let's dive a little bit into allyship and how you're trying to change the conversation so that people understand that it's better to be an accomplice versus being an ally. So we're going there, all right? We're going there. Let's get in this. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, so let's start with some definitions. So if we think of an ally as a noun or an identity or a way that you see yourself, the way you might say it in shorthand is, I'm a good person. And so the term accomplice sprung out of the indigenous rights movement and a critique of allyship that says, this work might cost you something, right? So if we conceptualize allyship as a noun, or ally as a noun, then an accomplice is a verb. It's what you're doing. And we're intentionally playing with the language a little bit. It's a little subversive. It sounds like you're doing something wrong. It sounds like you might be party to a crime. And to that we say, that's not what we're encouraging. But we need to look at the historical record, which is to say what's right has not always been legal and what's legal has not always been right. So what we're inviting people to do is reimagine how they are activating their allyship to make it less of an identity and more of an action and an act of partnership with somebody else that might need your support, that might benefit from your privilege, or that could just use some support in this moment, whatever that looks like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so give me an example of this, because one of the things that stuck out to me when I read your article about this topic, and by the way, we're going to post to that along with this video, is the fact that one of the main differences between being an ally and an accomplice is the fact that you need to have some skin in the game. You need to risk something. Tell me exactly what you mean by that, and maybe we can jump into some scenarios here.
if you're a company struggling to figure out what to do, and you're in a position of leadership or authority, you have a budget, you have influence, there are people that listen to you. It's one thing to put out a statement to say, we stand with protesters, or I understand this unrest and the inequality, and it gives me great pain to see that it's taking place. It's one thing to post on social media about the unrest and to basically signal that you're on the side of the people who are aggrieved and that you experience their concerns to be valid. It is yet another thing to take a look inward and say, what am I doing to measurably and appreciably address the concerns that these folks are saying? How am I addressing this in how I'm hiring? How am I looking at the demographic composition of my team, and maybe bringing it to parity with the U.S. population? So if African Americans comprise 13% of the U.S. population, does that map to my leadership team? Does that map to my hiring goals? Am I having a sustained and ongoing conversation internally about what it means to bring these allyship values to light? Am I intervening when I see somebody talked over? Am I looking with curiosity to understand the lived experiences of people of color and those with marginalized identities in my workplace? Am I embodying this posture of curiosity that says, when I'm in a position to do something and to intervene on the basis of my identity, privilege, or seniority, am I activating that? Is that helpful?
Absolutely. And I think that your mentioning of leadership and management is so vital, because if your leaders are the ones that are saying, this is unacceptable, or we need to diversify our hiring pool, let's change up how we're doing things. When it's coming from the top down, I feel like that frees people further down the line to say, I'm going to speak up too. So let's take, for example, let's jump into a scenario, maybe a couple of the ones that you teach in your workshop, where we put ourselves in a position to understand specific scenarios where you can become an accomplice in this situation.
Sure. So let's say somebody comes up to you at work, and after a meeting, this is a person of color, and they're an individual contributor and you're a manager. Let's say they approach you and say, you said something that was racially insensitive during a company meeting. Maybe you used a word or turn of phrase or just some stereotype perhaps that was offensive, and you're surprised that anything that you said had any racial connotation whatsoever. You have a choice in that moment when the person approaches you. Are you going to defend yourself? Are you going to explain? Are you going to tell this person why they're wrong and dig your heels in? Or are you going to say, in this moment, the most important thing that I can do is acknowledge the harm that is taking place and seek to repair it? A key part of the allyship or the ally skills framework that we teach is this notion of prioritizing the repairing of harm. So in that moment, harm has taken place and you have a decision to make. You can either defend yourself and prioritize getting it right with you so you can hold your head high, or you can say, something took place here, and regardless of whether or not I am technically correct, I can do something powerful and establish psychological safety by saying, thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. I had no idea and I apologize, period. Right? So after that, you can do all the defending and explaining that you want, but it's an invitation to prioritize what is most needed in a particular situation. So that's one example.
That's wonderful. And I'm thinking as well, you know, that's a direct kind of confrontation situation, but we're going to have a lot more situations where people are on the sidelines that perhaps witness this. So if you're on the sidelines, if you're not directly involved, but you do want to be an accomplice in this situation, what do you do?
Bystander intervention is one of the most powerful components of what we can do. Many of us witness harm taking place. Somebody being talked over in a meeting, somebody maybe being berated. There's all sorts of ways that harm takes place in the workplace, and we witness it constantly. When something like this takes place, especially among polite company, we tend to freeze up. You know, the body goes into the fight, flight, or freeze response. And as my colleague, Dr. Kim Tran, on whose research this is based, says, we don't talk enough about the freeze. People become paralyzed. So when you look at folks who support women and victims of domestic and sexual violence, one of the things that they practice is dialing 911. They practice dialing 911. They practice dialing 911 because in the wake of the moment, the number of people that dial 411 erroneously because it's not in muscle memory would shock us all, right? So we have to practice how we're going to respond in these stress-inducing situations. And that's why our ally skills training is so popular. We put people in the fire. We put people in these complex social scenarios to say, when this happens, what will you say? Here's a script of what you could say. You say, that's not okay. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. So there's a two-part framework that we offer. Number one, you address the situation that took place. So if somebody is being rude or awful or discourteous to somebody else, you can simply say, that's not okay, right? You offer some reflections. What did you mean by that? I'm not sure you realized it, but that had a particular discriminatory impact. Or to my ear, that sounded quite racialized. So you give them an opportunity to address the harm that's taking place and understand the impact that it had on you. And that's step one. Step two is to address the person who was harmed. And that doesn't have to be any more complicated than saying, Jessica, I saw what happened in the meeting. Are you okay? Can I support you?
Right. But the important thing is to say something.
Call it out. Say something. The silence is deafening, especially for people who are hurting. We're seeing what's going on in the news right now, who are impacted by not just the issues related to the recent killings and the disproportionate impact on the Black community, but also people who have been suffering in silence for a long time. So there's this jargon around bringing all of ourselves to work. But what we know is that disproportionately applies to majority group folks, right? So if you happen to have an identity or a background that is outside of the mainstream, there's an implicit invitation to dim your light a little bit and to assimilate and to make that part of yourself smaller. So what goes along with this is saying, what do we actually mean when we're inviting people to bring more of themselves into the workplace?
So basically what you're saying is that if you're African American or you're Hispanic American or you're LGBTQ plus, any of these sorts of identities, you're forced to kind of tamp it down a little bit. Don't be your full self at work because you might make somebody uncomfortable. Is that what you're saying?
It's exactly right. It's sometimes implicit, it's sometimes explicit, and sometimes we see the writing on the wall. So going back to you said about why it's so important for leadership to do something and say something, when a company has an all-white male leadership team, it sends a certain kind of signal. How high can I progress in this company? Are any of the leadership members out in their sexuality or their sexual orientation? Do I see diverse faces? Do I see a multiplicity of genders represented? And if not, what does that mean about my chances for progress within this organization? And so that's one component, the visibility.
So
the
optics matter.
It matters. Representation and optics matter so much because people are going to look at your about page before they look at your job listings, right? So they're receiving all these signals internally, and they're making some calculations. Should I be keeping my resume updated? Should I be applying for other jobs? Do I really see a chance for me to progress at this company? And more than often, the answer to that question is unfortunately no. So the optics matter. The other piece, really briefly, is when leadership says something, when leadership communicates in awareness that there are gaps there, that they're working towards it, that they're working on building a strategy, and that these things matter, that gives people permission to say, wow, so that's what leadership looks like. This is a priority, and if they're putting action behind it, this is the kind of place that perhaps I can grow and see myself evolving as a leader.
That was one of the most amazing things about yesterday's leadership cast, seeing our CEO, Hans, cede the floor to high-ranking African-American executives within Verizon to speak about their personal experiences was just revelatory on so many levels. And I was watching, and I was so moved, and I was reading the comments at the same time, and you had just this outpouring of expression from so many employees from every background saying, I can't believe we're talking about this. I can't believe a company as big as Verizon is allowing us to be so honest. And I was very, very moved because, that's one of the reasons I'm so proud to work here is because diversity is baked into our corporate structure. And it's not like, oh, check off the diversity box when it comes to that sort of thing. No, we live it, and it's the V Team way. It's part of our culture. But I had never before seen that sort of witnessing of people's pain in a corporate environment. And I think obviously with all the events that have been happening lately, there's a lot more acknowledgement, but the fact is that the microaggressions and the dimming your light has been going on for years. And I want to talk to you about your personal journey because, I mean, you have an engineering background and a consulting background, and then now you're doing this insanely powerful work. I want to know what informed your experience as an African-American man living in this country and what made you decide to pivot to doing this kind of work.
Sure. My background is tech. I started my career, as I tell people, with a tiny company called Accenture. And, you know, I was living out of an airplane, flying 4 days a week. And it occurred to me very quickly on that wasn't going to be the lifestyle that I was best suited for. I love pursuing my own passions and just figuring out what it is that lit me up in the morning. And after a while, IT consulting was not that. And so I pivoted. I took a leap of faith, as you know, and I started working with one of my heroes in New York City and helped to start a publishing company in
Seth
partnership
Godin.
with
Let's just drop his name, Seth Godin. It's kind of a big deal.
19-time best-selling author, blogger extraordinaire, the Oprah of internet marketing, Seth Godin, who's been a tremendous supporter of my work over the years and who has enabled a lot of my influence in the space. I worked in the book publishing space for about half a year. I lived abroad and I was doing some web performance engineering, as you know. So I've been engaging in this distributed workforce for quite some time. And around the time of Mike Brown's death in Ferguson, I remember that situation in some ways cracked me open. It radicalized me in some ways, frankly. I was really active on Twitter at the time, and I remember from the incident happened, I was following the events night over night. And there was something about that incident that woke me up or that cut through the noise for me. I come from a fairly comfortable middle-class upbringing, and I had an understanding of the disparities that existed between people in society, but I didn't have it did not impact me viscerally. So I grew up fairly outside of some of these structural harms. But I hadn't personally experienced them is what I would say. But there was something about the events in the uprising in Ferguson and seeing them and tracking those events night over night, watching the protesters and the police provocation and the way that the press was dealt with, that really brought these issues to life. So I had a lot to grapple with as a Black male, having the body that I have, the face that I have, knowing that it couldn't change. I felt vulnerable in a way that I never had before. And so, like any self-respecting entrepreneur in response to this, I started an online magazine for Black men. And that was my way of learning out loud. It was an intellectual coming of age for me. And 425 articles later, we built a platform to talk about what our experiences were like, this metaphor of inclusion, what life might be like for somebody who's not like you. And we built bridges. So I've since retired that project. We declared victory, as Seth would say. And that opened the door to what I do for a living now, which is facilitating conversations across difference, finding these connection points, reminding ourselves of the things that we have in common more so than what divides us. And frankly, pre and post pandemic, bringing people together literally to be in the same room, to connect, to network, to understand what it is that we can offer each other to support each other's journey and lived experience.
Yeah, and real briefly, because I want to get back to more of your consultancy and really get into these skills that you bring to the table. I want to talk a little bit about your experience of otherness, because you said that you kind of coasted for a while, and then Mike Ferguson cracked you open. Did you become increasingly aware of your otherness?
Absolutely. I think that's a really good way of putting it. I felt so self-conscious about my identity. There have been many steps. So I used to have long hair. I'm from Florida. Braids and twists were a part of it. And I remember when I started interning in corporate America, when I cut my long hair, and I had more hair back then, but when I cut my long hair, when I went from a lot of hair to much less hair, I felt a burden lifted, not because anything had changed about me, but because I had internalized that some people were making assumptions and stereotyping based on how I looked. And so to another degree, I became more conscious of my identity, of my Blackness, and the negative connotation of that in the wake of the events of the Ferguson uprising following Mike Brown's death. So my journey has been one of settling ever more fully into my own skin. And frankly, and I'll say this because people need to hear this, when you have the identity that you have, when you identify as Black, you have to make great efforts to love yourself in a way that is not taught to you. Because the signal sent by the media, especially when you're a Black man, is one of stereotype. We are typecast as either athletes, entertainers, criminals, or just solely musicians, right? There are these stereotypes and these shorthands where people expect less of certain identities. And so this radical act of self-care and prioritizing my joy and wellness has been a through line of this work. And that's what allows me to connect with people of all backgrounds and identities and genders from a place of genuine desire and connection, because I'm offering something that I already have, which is a joy and a desire to connect from that place, not of deficit, but of generosity, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, I love it. I know it's something that you radiate, and I'm so glad that you're the vessel for this work. And let's get back to that work. So I think we've got to also talk about the fact that there's a lot of fear around having open conversations. You know, we can talk all we want about becoming an accomplice and speaking up and speaking out, but there's a lot of fear that your well intentions will cause more harm. And I want to get at, you know, lots of conversations have gone awry. So how do we create these conversations that are going to be constructive as opposed to creating even more unintentional harm?
I'm so glad you asked this question. This really is at the core of what makes our conversation so different. Not only are we out of practice, we don't have the tools to successfully navigate these conversations. When I'm starting a workshop, I often say, by a show of hands, how many of you have had a conversation about race that did not go well? And reliably, many, many, many hands go up. And the unfortunate reality is that when people have tried to broach the topic and it has gone poorly, they shut down and say, I'm never doing that again. That was painful. I caused harm. This is permanently awkward with my colleague. I was coming from the right place and I feel misunderstood. And now I feel resentful. So the first thing I would say, Diana, is that we have to give ourselves and each other, frankly, grace and compassion to mess it up. One of the things we instill upon people is that you are going to mess this up. I guarantee you, you're going to mess it up. I mess it up. None of us are perfect. We're going to say the wrong thing. We live in a politically volatile environment where people who have been silently carrying this burden for a long time are frustrated. And so maybe a white person says the wrong thing or uses the wrong language or unintentionally communicates something that may be biased, or maybe they're just clumsy in their language. We all have things going on, right? You're frustrated, you're under-rested, the kids kept you up at night, you're having challenges with your partner, whatever the case may be, and so you don't get your words perfect. And because so many people have been carrying this hurt, this harm, these microaggressions for so long, they might overcorrect and lash out at the person and make them feel badly for not knowing. And so that creates a situation where nobody can move forward, nothing is resolved, and everybody is, having a standoff. We're saying, I'm not connecting with you. What we actually need is the grace to say, I see your effort, I acknowledge your effort, I acknowledge your harm, and we all can do that. There's nobody who's winning right now. Everybody is suffering. Our economy has been disrupted. Our way of life has been disrupted. There's a public health crisis. So the invitation right now is for everybody to have grace. If somebody says a good thing in the wrong way, we can acknowledge their effort. If somebody says the wrong thing and they feel embarrassed, they can forgive themselves. We have to start by being kind to ourselves and by forgiving ourselves so we can have that same thing to give to other people. But if we don't start with ourselves, we won't have it to offer. So I think one of the most important core fundamentals of being a good ally or being a good accomplice is understanding that you will mess this up and to dust yourself off and try again regardless. Even if somebody tells you it's not worth it, I didn't appreciate your efforts, receive that with humility, receive it with grace, definitely sit with it. Don't over-index on defending yourself or explaining yourself, but keep trying. It's worth it and people need your effort.
I know. I mean, I wish we all were our better selves at all times. I mean, like you said, we're doing the best we can. And quite frankly, I feel like a lot of these are new conversations for people. I mean, listen, people have been doing the work for years, writing the books and trying to teach these skills. But we're at a unique moment in history right now where I feel like a lot of eyes have been opened. A lot of you can't look away anymore. And then your natural intent is, well, what can I do to help? So I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. And I wanted to talk about, I want to get to bias because I feel like people are often surprised at the idea that they're biased. I mean, we all have bias to a certain extent, but explain to me from within the framework of your workshop, how do we explain bias? How do we identify it? And how do we work on it?
Such a great question. So bias by definition is an aversion or affinity to a person or group of people on the basis of identity or inherent characteristics. I'll say that one more time. Bias is an aversion or affinity to a person or group of people on the basis of identity and inherent characteristics. When we say identity and inherent characteristics, we're not just talking about race and gender. We're also talking about things like class, citizenship status, socioeconomic background, disability status, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a natural way of wanting to connect with people that are like us. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with this, right? It's how we've propagated the globe. It's in our blood, it's in our genes. We have evolved to be biased. The challenge is that this doesn't always map to a 21st century context when we need to connect with people that are different from us. So let's zoom out a little bit. As you know, Diana, you can with a fair amount of accuracy, predict somebody's life outcome on the basis of the zip code in which they were born and educated, right? Because more resource schools get better teachers, they have better resources, and you can track the lifeline of these people onto great success in life. And that comes from the history of redlining, where Black folks, in living memory in this country, could not buy property. Right, so our neighborhoods now are more segregated than they were in the 50s. We live in these racial clusters that are self-reinforcing. So a lot of people don't have an opportunity to build humanity and intimacy with people that aren't like them. So like me bias is our tendency to be attracted to or to connect more deeply and readily with people that look, act, or think like us. That's one bias. Another bias is leniency bias. Leniency bias is our tendency to give people a pass or to say, I get where you're coming from, even if they're technically wrong about something in the interview process or if they make a mistake. This is our readiness to give people a pass who look, act, or think like this. The third and final bias that I'll mention, and there are many, many of these cognitive or interpersonal biases, is prove it again bias. So think about the interview process. When you have, let's say we have a white male and we have a woman of color, let's say we have a Black woman, interviewing for a job. Prove it again bias is the tendency of somebody with a minoritized identity to have to prove themselves over and over to seem competent. And many of us are unconscious of doing this or putting this on people, but this can manifest when a recruiter asks a question, the person gets it right quickly, and the person says, you should know that. In their head, they're saying, you should know it as well as you do. Like, I just learned this, or this is an advanced concept. So I'm going to give you another question to maybe throw you off so my ego is appeased. That's prove it again bias, and that's what women and minoritized identities in the workplace are constantly up against. So when you see how these things layer on top of each other and reinforce each other, there's this invisible force that is keeping people down, even when good people are all in the mix, right? Because we're not aware of these biases. So the key is to be aware of these biases and to actively counteract them. Because if we're not aware of perpetuating these biases, then we're going to have homogenous teams, we're going to have challenges, and there's always going to be this in-group, out-group phenomenon that we can never penetrate.
Yeah, and you know, as a Hispanic woman, I definitely had the prove it again bias pop up in my career. It's real. So this has been such an illuminating conversation, and I'm again, I keep saying this over and over again, but hallelujah, we are talking about this, and we are educating people, and people are feeling free to express themselves, at least at Verizon. I mean, and again, it's just, it blew my mind yesterday to see so much powerful witnessing. Moving forward though, you know, it's like we have these moments that rock everybody, and suddenly no one can look away and we have to pay attention. And then everything kind of smooths out and goes away. So how do we seize this moment right now and make sure that we don't just say, you know, all right, cool, it's over, everything's fine now. How do we continue to do the work? How do we continue to become accomplices within our own workplace? Like, map out, give me the keys of the kingdom, Willie, and tell me how we're going to keep this action going into the next weeks, months, and years.
Then let me first say something that is uncomfortable to mention, but I'd be remiss if I didn't. There is an asymmetry between who's waking up right now and who has always been lucid to these challenges.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous difference between people who suddenly feel validated by their pain being seen and people who are saying, I had no idea it was that bad, because the people who have been holding this the entire time are just as frustrated that it took this much, this long. We have to have live streams. We have to have videos on repeat that are deeply, deeply challenging and traumatizing for essential humanity to be acknowledged. We have to burn cities down. We have to burn buildings down and cause great damage for people to say, oh, folks are hurting so deeply, and this is not new. There is a legacy of this. This is, in fact, our American inheritance. So our legacy is very, very complicated, to say the least. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say there are many people who have been holding this pain for a very long time. And so to the people who are becoming aware of this and taking it serious right now, we say welcome. Welcome. And I say that in a cheeky way, of course, but I also say it in a genuine way. We need your awareness. The key, Diana, right now is to not just to make a concerted effort over the next 2 or 3 weeks. We are receiving endless requests right now to facilitate challenging conversations this week, this month, today, if you can. What's vital is that when the news headlines shift, when we find something else to be outraged about, when something else has captured our national attention, that we remember this moment. How can we stand up a strategy right now and set some goalposts for 3, 6, 9 months down the line, 3, 6, 9 years down the line? The work of racial equity will always be needed. And what we need is a strategy. We don't need a reflexive action. We don't just need people to write checks. We don't just need people to have town halls. We need to make this our way of being with each other. So we need to take a look at what people have been saying right now. We need to look at the books and the literature and the scholarship that has taken place. And I'd be happy to provide a curated list of resources that people can do some learning around. And we need to take this seriously in an ongoing fashion and make this how we connect rather than just the effort of the moment.
Absolutely. And again, I'm proud that Verizon put together a toolkit for these very purposes. We have literature listed, we have books, movies, all sorts of things that can help you do the work. Oh yeah, we've got this. And we're obviously gonna link to this in the accompanying article, but it is something that is gonna have to continue. I mean, this is a horrible moment for our nation right now, and the uncorking of pain is uncomfortable to witness, but I feel like it's long overdue, and I for one am really hoping that this births a new way of doing work, because really, I mean, the lines are so mixed, it's like there is no work-life difference. I mean, we live through our work and we work through we work our lives. And I want to say thank you so much for speaking with us about this. And this is a good start. It's a good start to have this conversation. But I really hope we're talking about this 6 months from now and the landscape looks a little bit different. And I just want to thank you again for creating safe spaces to talk about this, because we've been uncomfortable and unwilling to talk about this for a really long time, but now's the time. And I loved what you said about loving yourself and self-care. And this truly is self-care. It's like people used to say, hey, it's a pedicure and a massage. No. You got to take care of your soul, and you've got to take care of your mind. Important. They are. And I haven't had a pedicure in months because of the pandemic, but we won't talk about that. But the self-care of your soul is so important. And I'm glad that you brought that up and let us continue this work. And any last words, because I just feel like this was such an important conversation.
Diana, the wellness piece that you mentioned is such a vital capstone to this work. The work is not, if you're just new to this work, if you're just understanding how deep that rabbit hole goes, the work is not exposing yourself to traumatizing video over and over as a way of saying, I want to feel this pain so I can be better connected. If we wake up to these traumatizing headlines and these videos that are just horrendous to watch, and we're putting our bodies in a state where we are agitated, we are uncomfortable, and we're just a stew of toxic hormones and emotions, we are not going to be good for ourselves and each other. We need to remember and prioritize prioritize the wellness that we always would. That might be your yoga practice. That might be walking around the park. That might be your journaling or your mindfulness practice. Now is the time to double down on your wellness and to think about what the work looks like. The work is not watching the videos. The work is the journey of becoming more aware and doing something with that awareness. So in this moment, I want to invite people, just like you said, to take care of themselves. That's such a vital piece of this movement. Self-care can be a radical act, especially when you have a minoritized or oppressed identity, and this applies to all people as well. Please, please, please take care of yourself. I'm so honored to be here with you, Diana. Thank you so much for this conversation.
And tell the people you love them. So I love you, Willie.
I love you, Diana, and people.
All right. And that was Willie Jackson sharing some very, very, very important wisdom on his part with us. He is a facilitator and consultant with ReadySet. And my gosh, I'm so grateful we had this conversation on Wellness Friday. Talk about a Wellness Friday. And with that, we leave you. Thank you so much.